The Today Show studio was alive with that early morning sparkle that only live television can create, the hum of cameras, the rustle of cue cards, and the buzz of anticipation from an audience that had come to see one of gospel music's most beloved icons. CeCe Winans, dressed in a crisp white pantsuit that seemed to glow under the studio lights, smiled radiantly as Hoda Kotb greeted her with open arms. "You are such a light, CeCe," Hoda began warmly. "Your music has lifted people for decades, and your message of faith is so needed right now." The crowd cheered, and for a brief moment, everything felt perfectly in tune. The interview started smoothly. CeCe spoke about her early years in the church, the influence of her family, and how her faith had sustained her through personal and professional storms. Her voice was calm, filled with grace, as she described her latest album, a project she said was a call back to spiritual roots. The audience nodded along, many smiling, some visibly moved. Hoda leaned forward, listening intently, occasionally adding her signature affirmations, "That's beautiful," and "I love that." But then, about 10 minutes into the segment, the mood shifted. Hoda, always known for her empathetic but fearless interviewing style, gently pivoted the conversation toward a recent viral clip of CeCe speaking at a youth event. In the clip, CeCe had expressed concern about the moral decay in modern entertainment, words that had stirred controversy online. Hoda approached it carefully but directly. "CeCe, some people felt those comments came across as judgmental toward younger artists who are just expressing themselves. What would you say to those who think you might be out of touch with today's culture?" The question hung in the air like static. CeCe paused, then offered a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hoda," she began softly, "I've been singing about love and truth my entire life. But love doesn't mean silence. If I see the world drifting away from God, it's not judgment to speak, it's compassion. Truth isn't supposed to make us comfortable." The audience gave a hesitant round of applause. Hoda nodded, trying to keep the tone conversational. "I totally get that," she replied, "but don't you think times have changed? People express themselves differently now, maybe art is just reflecting that." CeCe's expression grew more serious. "Expression doesn't justify everything," she said. "There's a difference between freedom and rebellion. You can be creative and still be accountable to something higher." Her voice carried a firmness that made even the camera crew fall silent. Hoda glanced briefly toward the producers, sensing the tension. She tried to lighten the moment with a small laugh. "I love how passionate you are, CeCe. But couldn't it also be said that what you call rebellion might just be authenticity? Everyone's truth looks different." That word, truth, seemed to ignite something in CeCe. She leaned forward, her tone calm but unyielding. "There's only one truth, Hoda. The moment we start saying everyone can define their own, we lose our way. The truth isn't flexible, it's not about opinion or trend, it's about foundation." The room went completely still. Even Hoda, usually unshakable, seemed momentarily taken aback. "But," she said softly, "in today's world, don't we need to leave room for different perspectives?" CeCe's eyes softened, but her voice didn't waver. "I believe in love for everyone, Hoda. But love without truth is chaos. My calling isn't to please the world, it's to remind it." There was a long, uncomfortable pause. The energy that had begun so warmly now felt fragile, divided. The producers were signaling to wrap the segment, hoping to transition to CeCe's scheduled live performance. But CeCe glanced toward the band, then back at Hoda, and shook her head slightly. She reached up, unclipped her microphone, and stood. "Hoda, I respect you, and I appreciate this platform," she said, her voice quiet but resolute. "But I can't sit here and debate what I know to be sacred. This isn't a conversation about opinions, it's about conviction." Hoda tried to stop her, reaching out across the small table. "CeCe, please, I think people just want to understand where you're coming from." CeCe smiled faintly, almost sadly. "They'll understand through my music, not through arguments." With that, she turned and walked off stage. The audience gasped, a few clapped awkwardly, unsure what to do, as the cameras struggled to follow her exit. Hoda blinked, visibly rattled but composed enough to maintain professionalism. "Well," she said with a careful smile, "we love CeCe and her message of faith. We'll be right back after this." The screen cut to commercial, but the damage, or perhaps the moment of truth, had already been done. CeCe Winans, the queen of gospel grace, had just walked off live television, and America was about to start talking. When Today returned from its abrupt commercial break, Hoda Kotb's trademark composure was back in place, though her voice carried the faint tremor of someone still processing what had just happened. She looked directly into the camera, offered a measured smile, and said, "We have so much love and respect for CeCe Winans, she's a force of inspiration, and we wish her all the best." The show then moved swiftly into the next segment, a cooking demonstration that felt oddly muted after what the audience had just witnessed. But the silence didn't last long. Within minutes, clips of CeCe's walk-off began spreading like wildfire across social media. On X, formerly Twitter, the hashtags #CeCe Winans walks off and #Today Show clash began trending nationwide. The internet split in two. One side praised CeCe's unwavering faith in her refusal to bow to cultural pressure. "CeCe Winans didn't walk out, she stood up," one fan wrote. Another posted, "In a world that glorifies compromise, CeCe chose conviction." Others, however, accused her of being close-minded. "Faith doesn't mean shutting down discussion," read one post that quickly gained thousands of likes. "Walking off isn't courage, it's avoidance." Inside NBC headquarters, producers scrambled to manage the fallout. According to behind-the-scenes sources, CeCe had already warned them before the show that she wouldn't engage in what she called philosophical tug-of-war over her beliefs. She made it clear that she wanted to talk about her tour and her ministry, not defend her worldview, one staffer reportedly told a media outlet later that afternoon. But once Hoda brought up the viral clip, CeCe felt ambushed. Backstage, moments after the cameras cut to commercial, CeCe was seen speaking quietly with her team. She wasn't angry, according to those present, just firm. "This isn't the space for me," she was overheard saying. "I came to share the message, not to debate it." She then left the building through a side exit, avoiding the swarm of paparazzi gathering at the front. Hoda, meanwhile, stayed behind, shaken but professional, determined not to let the moment derail the rest of the show. By early afternoon, both women had issued public statements, each measured in tone but revealing in subtext. Hoda posted a short video on Instagram, sitting at her dressing room vanity. "I have nothing but love for CeCe," she said earnestly. "She's one of the most sincere and grounded people I've ever met. What happened this morning was a passionate moment, and that's what makes live television real. We can have different views and still have respect." The comments flooded in, a mix of empathy, criticism, and curiosity. CeCe responded later that evening, not through a video but a written post shared across her social platforms. "Today, I chose peace," she wrote. "I walked away from debate, not from love. My faith has never been for entertainment or argument. I stand where I've always stood, in truth and grace." Her words, gentle yet resolute, reignited the online conversation. Prominent pastors praised her for walking in integrity, while cultural commentators criticized her for missing a chance to bridge understanding. News outlets seized the story instantly. Entertainment panels dissected every facial expression, body movement, and word choice between the two women. Morning talk shows debated whether CeCe had overreacted or whether Hoda had pushed too hard. "That moment wasn't about music," one media analyst said on CNN. "It was about how faith collides with modern discourse, and neither woman wanted to back down." By nightfall, even celebrities chimed in. Gospel artists like Kirk Franklin and Tasha Cobbs posted messages of support for CeCe, praising her authenticity. Meanwhile, secular figures applauded Hoda for maintaining professionalism under pressure. "Two powerful women handled a difficult moment in two different ways," one tweet summarized. "Neither was wrong, they just came from different worlds." Behind the scenes, NBC's producers reached out privately to CeCe's management, expressing hope that she might return for a future performance once the situation cooled. According to insiders, CeCe's team was open to the idea, but only if the focus stays on her music and message, not her theology. Whether that reconciliation will happen remains uncertain. Over the next few days, the clip continued circulating, amassing millions of views. Think pieces appeared with headlines like, "When Faith Walks Out," "CeCe Winans and the Cost of Conviction," and "Can We Still Talk Across Belief?" It wasn't just a viral TV moment anymore, it had become a national conversation about how people of faith fit into modern media spaces, and how far authenticity can go before it clashes with the expectation of openness. And yet, amid the noise, both women carried on with quiet dignity. Hoda returned to her usual warmth the next morning, greeting viewers with a smile that hid any trace of tension. CeCe resumed her tour, performing to sold-out audiences who greeted her with standing ovations. During one concert in Atlanta, she briefly alluded to the incident. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. When God says be still, you be still. The crowd erupted in applause. In the end, what began as a fiery on-air clash became something larger, a reflection of two women living out their truths in real time, each guided by her own compass. Hoda believed in the power of open dialogue, CeCe believed in the sanctity of unshakable faith. Between them, the world caught a rare glimpse of how conviction and compassion can collide, and how, even in disagreement, grace can still linger in the silence that follows.